Rams running back Kyren Williams is injured. When can we expect him back? And we've got more storylines that you need to know from Rams OTAs. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor. Join the party and hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button. Close to 13K subs. Also, let us know, what are your thoughts on the Kyren Williams injury? Is it something, nothing, everything? What are your thoughts on Blake Corum? My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. SI, Bleacher Report, Dodgers Nation, 24/7 Sports, the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, a impact injury. How serious is it? We're going to talk about that. And we're going to continue to get into the storylines that you need to know for the Rams OTAs. And also, the Rams have announced their training camp location. We're going to get into that. But first, the top story today, Travis, Kyren Williams is going to miss the OTAs. He's dealing with a foot issue. This, according to Sean McVay, who spoke to reporters yesterday. And he said, it's nothing to worry about. He'll be ready to go for training camp, but there's a little issue when he was training, and kind of just leave it at that, but nothing to be concerned about. I told him, I said, it's probably a good thing now that you'll be with Vice President of Sports Medicine and Performance, Reggie Scott, in a little bit more of a discipline program instead of just, running yourself ragged. But I love Kyren. He's chomping at the bit to get back out there, but that'll be training camp. So anytime I hear don't worry, that's kind of when I start to worry, but It looks like it's going to be minor.
Sure. Right up until that it's not. And I'm not saying that it's major, but anytime they say, you know what, you should not practice and you should not be a part of the OTAs, you should not this, that, or the next thing, your eyebrows have to go up a little bit, because if it was nothing, he'd be participating. So at the very least, it's something. Now, maybe it's a very small something, and maybe it's something that just with a little bit of rest goes away and it's not a big problem at all. Hopefully that's exactly what this is. And what Sean McVay is saying is accurate and, truthful, and not like these being dishonest, but just this is what it is and it'll go away. That's the good news. Here's the problem with all of that. Kyren Williams has missed a lot of time in his career. Kyren Williams has been a player that has missed significant time with injuries. We know, go back 2 years ago where he literally gets hurt on the very first play of the entire season, and he misses virtually the entire year. You could chalk that up to just bad luck. Okay, fine. He comes back last year and in fairly limited duty gets nicked up early in the season and misses kind of that middle quarter of the season. Still puts up massive numbers. He's a good player when he plays, but he's been in the league 2 years and missed huge chunks of the season twice. If this were a player like Steve Avila, who I know we're going to talk about a little bit later on, then that's one thing. That dude played every snap. And if they said, hey, listen, he's got a little foot thing, we're just going to set him down, you go, oh, okay, no big deal. The dude's a rock. He doesn't miss time. He comes back and plays. Unfortunately, Kyren Williams has not been that guy. They did draft a running back in the 3rd round. Yeah, all of these things add up to, I don't know exactly what to make of this.
Yeah, and I'm with you on that one. And that's kind of where I'm at, is that, maybe I'm not overly concerned about this specific injury. I do believe he's going to be ready to go for training camp. But as you point out, he breaks his foot in rookie training camp right there. And then last season, he misses time due to a high ankle sprain. He was placed on the IR. And even in the Rams playoff loss to the Detroit Lions, he hurts his thumb in that one. So for me, maybe it's not specifically about this. But if it's not this, it's going to be something else. That's kind of where the worry comes in for me, is that, at this point you could say it's not just one injury, and also there's significant lower body injuries. And when you're a running back, that's the most important part, right? So, there is a little bit of that for sure. And as you point out too, he is great when he's healthy, right? I mean, last season, 1144 yards. That was fifth among all running backs. He had 12 touchdowns and played just 12 games. So that's great production, but you have to be on the field to get that level of production. I think that there were a lot of Rams fans, Travis, that were freaking out when Les Snead and Sean McVay, they selected Blake Corum in the third round. People are saying, you're drafting a running back too high. You're reaching for a running back. I think these guys know what they're doing. I think these guys probably had some previous knowledge of this. And even if they didn't, they wanted to give themselves some more insurance in the event that Kyren Williams does go down with the injury, especially when you consider the fact they invested so much on the offensive line, bringing back Kevin Dotson, signing Jonah Jackson. You have Steve Avila, who was great in his rookie season. So I think the Rams, they know what they're doing, and this is another example of why.
At some point, you have to hedge your bets, and especially if a player is perpetually dealing with little bumps and bruises. Like you mentioned, I'll be honest, D-Mac, I had forgotten about the thumb. You're right about that. That was another thing that he had to deal with at the end of the season. Look, if you're being optimistic, and everybody knows that I'm a terribly optimistic person, is that this could be one of those things that he is. You know, Sean McVay made a joke about, this guy just works himself into a lather, and he's constantly, you need to protect him from himself. Hopefully that's what this is, that this is a very minor thing, that this is the sort of player, the sort of athlete that never stops, that's always working, that's always in great shape, that's always pushing himself to the next level. I think that, and just needing a little time and someone to say, dude, chill the what out, go sit down somewhere for a second and let yourself be at your best by the time that we need you. Hopefully that's what this is, because this isn't a player that's out of shape. This isn't somebody that won't do the work. This isn't somebody that isn't a tough player. We saw him when he plays. He runs tough. He's a hard-nosed guy. So you can put together a point of view that makes you think this is just them protecting him from himself. And then I go back to my normal setting, which is, gosh, he misses a lot of time. And gosh, they did spend a pretty valuable draft pick on a running back in a position where you do have a really nice player in Kyren Williams. And you just got to wonder if, like you said, you got to hedge your bets a little bit, because the Rams are going to be led by this offense more likely than not. And you're going to need production out of that running back spot. And we know when he's there, he's really good, but we know that he's missed time both of the seasons he's been in the league.
Yeah, I think at this point, you can just assume that, hey, even if he is 100% healthy, he doesn't have to be the guy. I think the approach of running back by committee is going to be best for this offense, because it's going to keep guys fresh and hopefully keep him healthy. And then you take advantage of the talents of Blake Corum, who's had success at every level. Went back to win the 2019 Maryland Player of the Year. Guys that have success at every level, it's kind of all they know. And he has all the physical attributes to have success behind this offensive line. Really a bowling ball, one cut and go type of running back. And I feel better about the fact that you have a Blake Corum. You have a Scott who is a veteran, experienced third down back. You have Zach Evans, so you have Ronnie Rivers. But let's say you don't bring in Scott, you don't draft Corum, then you're looking at Rivers and Evans. So I think that I'm a little less nervous because of the additions. And yeah, there's that. And look, Corum is still a rookie too, though. He still has to prove himself in this role.
And look, with all due respect to Kyren Williams and to Blake Corum and to Byron Scott, Boston, I'm getting my Lakers stream.
Arizona State.
Yeah, exactly. To anybody that might carry the ball for the Rams this year, that seems to be a position where you can find somebody that will do work for you. Now, you might not find a Derrick Henry, you might not find a Christian McCaffrey around every corner, or even a Kyren Williams, but there are guys that can get stuff done at that position. So it's not something that you like to see, obviously, but I'm optimistic that the Rams will find somebody to carry. And again, with Matthew Stafford and Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp and everything else that they got going offensively, the running back is always going to have opportunities to get a good look, if nothing else, in the Rams system. So I think they're going to be okay. But anytime you shut a guy down from some workouts, it does make you concerned.
100%. So, look, good news is they're saying it's minor now. Hopefully back for training camp, but they have the reinforcements. And also, don't forget Royce Freeman, too. I mean, you don't have to have that this season, right? You don't have Royce Freeman and Ronnie Rivers backing him up. You got some better players, in my opinion, at that position, so you can take advantage of this offensive line that they're going to depend on this season. But coming up next here on Locked On Rams, we're going to be talking about Steve Avila and his transition to the center spot and how it's one of the big storylines you need to be watching for Rams OTAs.
All right, so maybe you've got a 401k over here. Maybe you've got an IRA over there. Maybe you've got a lot of different things in a lot of different places. Wouldn't it be nice if you could have all of your retirement accounts, all of your investment information in one place? That's what Yahoo Finance does, right? So when it comes to your financial future, you think that you've done it all. You've saved, you've researched, you've invested everything that you can. Now you need to take those investments to the next level by using what all the financial greats use, Yahoo Finance. Because for more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. You can securely link your brokerage accounts for a unified view of your wealth, including 401k and other investments. A comprehensive perspective is what sets apart great investors, and it's how Yahoo Finance ensures you have the insight to look at your wealth in its entirety, not here and there, but all in one place. And with a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com. yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there. Help us get to 13,000 subscribers. We can't thank you enough. If you haven't subscribed over on YouTube, definitely join the party. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and you can be an every listener too. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, Travis, here in our second segment, we're picking up on the storylines that Rams fans need to know for OTAs, and this one I think is a little bit of an underrated one, and that is Steve Avila going back to the center position. Before we talk about the transition, got to talk about his rookie season. I mean, He was fantastic. The Rams, they picked him up, the number 36 pick overall out of TCU. He's one of 4 rookie guards that played over 1,000 snaps at a 97.3 pass blocking efficiency grade via PFF. That led all rookie guards. So kind of the first thing is like, oh, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But how about this? Coleman Shelton, he gave the most pressures last season on that offensive line. He opted out of his contract. So if it is broken, try to fix it. And by putting Steve Avila at the center spot, I think that fixes a lot and it really solidifies the front of that offensive line.
I know I said this a lot last year, and I'm going to say it again right now. The everydayers probably know what we're talking about here. We never talked about him last year. And there's nothing better you could say about an offensive line than we never say your name. Right? The only time you say an offensive lineman's name is when you get hurt, when you commit a penalty, or when you give up a sack. We didn't talk about Steve Avila in any of those capacities in a meaningful way. I mean, give up a sack here or there, whatever. That's just the NFL. That's life in that league. He was terrific. He was exactly what they were hoping to get last season when they used their number 2 pick on him, their second round pick, I should say, their first overall pick, that we never once felt like, could they have gotten this guy or that guy? They nailed that pick. This is a guy that I mentioned earlier had played every single snap this year. I've had a chance to talk to him a couple of different times since the end of last season. That dude is awesome. Like I could not be a bigger fan of Steve Avila's because he's physical, he's smart, he's team-oriented, he's versatile, like we're going to see. He's moving to center this year, and he's just a football guy. He's just through and through. I know it's a cliche, and I know it's one of those, well, what the heck does that mean? But it means exactly what you think it means to him. He likes the physicality. He likes the science of it. He likes the laying of hands on another person. He likes everything about it. I couldn't be a bigger fan of his. I think he's going to thrive at the center position because there's a lot of decisions that go with that position. There's far more, if-then scenarios and making decisions in the moment on protections and schemes and everything else. And I think he's going to absolutely kill it there. I'm very optimistic.
100%. It is going to be a transition. If I was at training camp, the first question I would ask Matthew Stafford is about building that chemistry with Steve Avila. What are your thoughts on him? And I'm pretty sure he's going to have some glowing things to say about him once it's done and they're through OTAs. Because if you look at his college career, without diving too deep in the numbers, when he played guard, he was grayed out as a top 40 guard. When he played center, he was graded out as a top 10 center. So that's his natural position. I think that he's going to be even better at the center spot than he was at the guard spot. So that's going to be an upgrade. And like you said, I think he is going to thrive at that center spot. Also, too, I think the leadership qualities, you get that leadership quality from him. You see those intangibles. So he can use that strength as well. And you look, too, at what they're trying to do. They go from a zone blocking scheme to more of a power, just gap, running duo. I mean, there's totally changing the way that they run their offensive line. And anytime you got a power gap scheme versus zone blocking scheme, you need physical dudes. You need road graders. And Steve Avila has the leadership and the physical tools to get it done at center.
I love the point about leadership, because think about what we've talked about when the Rams were at their best over the last 4, 5, 6 years. Andrew Whitworth's name always came up. That Andrew Whitworth was a guy that'd been around the league for a really long time, as a Walter Payton Man of the Year. Like, he was the rock of that offensive line, if not the rock of the entire offensive unit, right? That the stories about people going to his house to lift and him holding little offensive lineman clinics and stuff. Since he's left, there really hasn't been somebody that's stepped into that role in a super meaningful way. I know Rob Havenstein is a veteran and well-respected on that team, but there's something about just leadership qualities that some people just naturally gravitate towards one person as opposed to another. I think Avila is one of the guys that has that. I think he's the guy that has the ability, that has the durability, that has the intelligence, and quite frankly has that X factor that people are drawn to be the anchor of that offensive line for a very long time. And if he's got the rapport with Matthew Stafford that I expect him to have, that's a spot that he could hold down for a very long time. And you know, I'm not going to say he's the next Andrew Whitworth, because, you know, obviously very different positions and everything, but just as far as impact and charisma and leadership, I feel like it's really heading in that direction. He really does have that sort of personality and that sort of charisma.
I could not agree more just about the significance of having that leadership quality, because we're in the age of analytics, the age of statistics. There's no stat for that. There's no analytic for that. There's no metric to just measure that skill set. And I think it's something you're really born with. You really can't teach that. But just like you said, the charisma, seeing him on your radio show, seeing him on shows out there, he just kind of got that it factor that I think has this magnetism to it, that I think he's a leader of dudes. You know what I'm saying? And I think guys are drawn to that. Another thing that's going to make that transition easier, too, you got Kevin Dotson and you got Jonah Jackson, 2 experienced guards. So I'm so excited to watch the middle of this offensive line. I think that's going to make it that much easier.
You know, one of the things that Kirk Morrison, who I do the Rams pre-half and post with and have done it for the going into our 9th season here, that I can hear his voice in my head right now talking about those 3 guys. You build your football team to compete inside your division first, right? That you need to find a way to be really successful inside your division first, and then you kind of build out from there. They needed to be better on the interior line to compete with the San Francisco 49ers. When the Niners have had their most success against the Rams, and they've had a lot of success against the Rams, it's because they get push in the middle of the line. They got push in the middle of the line against Jared Goff. They got push in the middle of the line against Matthew Stafford. And if there's pressure in your face, I don't care if you're Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Patrick Mahomes or anybody else, that's the spot that's impossible to deal with. And that's where the Rams struggled with San Francisco. I don't think that's going to be the case. They're much better in the interior of the line, and I think that's a direct response to them trying to get more competitive with San Francisco.
Great point. I mean, at the end of the day, that's really what it's about. You win your division, you put yourself in a great position to make a deep run. And the 49ers have been in front of them, dominating this division for quite some time. But let's not forget who has that last Super Bowl, baby. But coming up next, the Rams have announced their training camp location. We're going to tell you what it means. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, Travis, we talked about a couple of days ago about training camp, how they're not going to be at UCI. The New Orleans Saints are at UCI. They're still building the training facility in Woodland Hills. Well, yesterday the team announced that their training camp for the 2024 season will be held at Loyola Marymount University in Los Angeles. It's closer to the team's facilities at Thousand Oaks. It's an hour away versus 2 hours away at UCI, and fans will be able to attend training camp. So, hey, Loyola Marymount. Any surprises about that?
No, I've heard rumors that might be where they were headed for since last year at training camp. As an Orange County resident, I kind of liked having a few home games at UCI, so that's a little bit of a bummer for me personally. But yeah, I get it. I kind of like the idea of moving it around a little bit, of going to different pockets of the city, going to different parts of the communities, and really kind of trying to grow some roots there. I think the Rams have done a great job of that. I think that, they kind of put a little bit of a footprint in Orange County over the last few years, being a little more LA central in LMU. I think will benefit them as well. I just do not fancy the days of trying to get more to go near LAX more often is not something that I'm looking to do. But that's the complaint of somebody that has to go do something that they would do anyway. So it's fine. They're going to build that facility in the Valley ultimately, and I'm sure that's where they'll hang their hats more often than not. But yeah, LMU for a while will work, I guess.
Yeah, I'm curious to see. I mean, I've gone to UCI a couple different times, and the turnout's really solid.
It is.
But I'm just curious to see if you're closer to SoFi, you're closer to LA. Will there be kind of this buzz, especially with this team heading into the season, where you see more LA Rams fans at training camp? Because look, I mean, that's where it all starts, right? Your core fan base, people that are saying, okay, I want to go see my team in training camp. When those numbers grow, it really is an indicator of just how big the fan base has grown in the city. So I'm curious to see that, because, I mean, do you know about this, Travis, that the Raiders can't even have their open training camp in LA, and it's only the season ticket holders because there's already a team in LA? So that's an advantage for the Rams right there, is that they can have as many fans there.
Yeah, well, like you said, I think that there's something about, if you are a training camp person, number one, the Rams have done a great job since coming back. It's free. It's a chance to come out and see NFL players up close in an environment where it doesn't, and it's fun. You can go, you can have a beer, you can sit in the sun, you can watch some football. It's a good day and it's inexpensive. But let's be honest about it, D-Mac. You're right. If you are a training camp person, you're all in. Right. You are all in on that, because quite frankly, there's a lot of times where there's a little bit of standing around. There's guys stretching. There's not a ton of action at any given moment. You got to kind of wait around for it a little bit. It's football practice, right? It's not a football game. It's a football practice. So if you're going to that, you're all in. So why not give your people who are all in an opportunity to go do that in different parts of the city? I think it'll work out great.
No doubt about it. And I think the Rams are trying to kind of LAify everything from the way they go about things. So it'll be really interesting to see if you have any notable LMU alumni like Mila Kunis show up, the great Carson Daly. Not going to lie, I looked up notable LMU alumni minutes before this show, and those are the two ones that stood out to me.
Well, those are two pretty good ones, right? Who doesn't like Mila Kunis? And Carson Daly is a broadcast legend, going all the way back to his K-Rock days.
Well, Peter Griffin doesn't like Mila Kunis because she's Meg, but that's pretty much it. But that's to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.